Hey, everybody. This is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations, and we are really having all the conversations today with an absolutely beautiful soul. We are going to be traipsing the light fantastic and really exploring what it means to be human and maybe a little extra human. Also, we're going to be delving into perspectives much wider than we can even imagine. So, with us today is Marguerite Anderson. Hey, Marguerite.
Hi, Heather.
Hey there.
Body out there.
Yes, and welcome from Tennessee. So we're zooming in from Tennessee today, and we have just met online, and then we had a beautiful conversation the other day. And I absolutely adore that Marguerite, as sometimes the guests on the show, as is very organic, Spirit will say, reach out to this person because the topic at hand is going to be very perfect for those who want to hear. And this is one of those occasions. So I really appreciate that Marguerite was tickled when I messengered her, and we had a great conversation just on Saturday, just a couple of days ago. And we knew that now is the time. Now is the time to have this moment and have this interview. And I think it's about to be really special for everybody because we're going through a little of a whoop-de-doo of a time.
Are.
It's a yeehaw, giddy up of a time. And so, what Marguerite does, one of her many wheelhouses, is she's a professional artist. She's a consciousness bridge, but the main thing, which is where I saw her, is through a Facebook group page called the Schumann Resonance Updates page. And so, we're going to talk all about the Schumann resonance and solar flares and why these things are important. And then we're going to broaden that whole conversation into much more. So again, welcome, Marguerite.
Thank you. Thank you. The Schumann resonance, most people don't know what it is.
Right.
But the reason it's coming to the forefront is because it applies directly to us individually and as people in general, and mammals for that matter. All mammals are influenced and affected by the Schumann resonance, including your pets, including animals outside. So you might say, well, how does it affect us or influence us? Our brain waves correspond with the frequencies in the Schumann resonance. And what is the Schumann resonance? It was discovered in the late 40s. And I'm going to try and show this here. It will show the Earth. Can you see it okay?
I can see that. It's beautiful. And for those listening, this is being video recorded as well. So it'll be on the YouTube video. So yes, I can see that very well. Thanks.
Okay. And you see the wavy line going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
The atmosphere outside, the ionosphere, is the very top level of our atmosphere.
And this is of our global planet. And so what we're seeing are the different wavelengths, even outside what we think of as our grounded planet. Yeah.
Yes, the Schumann resonance is caused by electricity, by especially lightning and even earthquakes, and volcanic activity puts out electricity into our atmosphere. It doesn't just dissipate, it goes up into our atmosphere and it does what they call the Schumann wave, which is what you're right there. It goes back and forth, up and down, so it travels all over the Earth, from the surface of the Earth all the way up to the very top of our atmosphere and back down again. And those frequencies correlate with our brain waves. And certain brain waves, of course, have to do with us feeling sleepy or feeling very alert. And if you get up high enough into gamma, which is not a bad thing, it's not the same as other types of gamma rays. Gamma frequency is where both sides of your brain come into coherence. So it's a very fast frequency. And it's in that place that people have aha moments and epiphanies and revelations and incredible inventions come to them. And we're seeing this come on the Schumann resonance very often, whereas used to be it never happened from what I understand. So all of this correlates with our brain waves and is taking us into a higher place than we were in our past history.
So one of the questions I have with that is this different than what might be more radioactive waves? We've seen a lot of aurora borealis and the purples and the greens, which also can affect us as well. And there are things called um, coronal mass ejections and solar flares and whiteouts and blackouts. So there's so much that's really going on right now.
Is. And we don't just deal with, as you just said, the Schumann resonance. We also keep an eye on space weather. I have a good friend who is a weather person, and I talked to him. I noticed he was watching my page, and I said, "Why are you, Josh? Why are you watching my page? I mean, you're the weather guy." And he said, "Well, space weather is weather. What happens out there totally influences what happens here." You know,
Right.
so oh my, that is a big subject. The Schumann resonance is what we started with because it so clearly correlates with the way we feel. There are many symptoms that people feel, which are called numerous things. Some people call them ascension symptoms because there's the belief that these energies, this photonic energy and light that's coming in through space into the Schumann resonance and bouncing around with all the other frequencies is indeed upgrading our DNA or bringing us into a place of what is considered ascension. The Christian terminology, for those of you who come from a Christian background, would imply rapture. And when I first heard people talking about this, I was like, this all sounds so familiar. How interesting. The belief seems to be that prime creator or source or angelic influences have decided that it's now time for Earth to move into its next level. The old term was quantum leap. So the way this is being done is by all this photonic energy coming in through space weather, through solar flares, CMEs, lots of the aurora borealis, and the Schumann resonance is reacting and responding to all this too. So what happens is our DNA is changed by photonic energy or by light. And so many people believe we are being prepared for this ascension event, which many people think may be very different things, but many of us are experiencing major changes now. And you mentioned more than human or superpowers. That is something that many people are actually experiencing because this is activating DNA that they've always called junk DNA, which is a huge percentage of our DNA. Now, we can go on and talk about solar flares.
Well, what's interesting, Marguerite, is
Mhm.
I loved how it all kind of blends together and it's happening all at the same time. So there's this interesting simultaneousness of it all. And you can call it ascension. Some people are talking about a flash. Is there going to be this flash? But
Solar.
to sit a solar flash, a solar flare, to simplify. And I love that this is going to be episode 101. So we're just taking a few moments to have it like lessons 10 on 101 level for a lot of people. What this means is that the energy is so expansive right now, and y'all aren't crazy. It can make you feel that you're crazy because strange things can happen. You could have strange physical symptoms. You might feel sick. Someone might actually have mental breaks, as a matter of fact. It's very, very powerful in ways that are seen and unseen. And this is why, and I'll go ahead and throw in here right now, it has gotten quite intense,
Mhm.
where I know part of the what you and I are here for is to help people come to their coherence and take that breath and to slow the roll a little bit as best as possible. All
Mhm.
the while, of course, now I just lost my train of thought. I think and that's kind of the point. Things are moving and shaking. It was that measurements are even off the tracks, right? So what even has been able to gauge some of these things are now off the instruments.
Yes,
We
off
haven't
the chart.
we haven't off the charts. We haven't seen this ever, ever. This is new.
Yes, yes. The old saying, "There's nothing new under the sun," does not apply right now.
Oh, correct. Everything is new under the sun.
We are seeing a lot
Everything.
of
Yeah.
things. We absolutely are. So, yes. Um, One thing that might be useful, if people do go to my Facebook page, which is called Schumann Resonance Updates with Marguerite. I have an old one that was just update, but I'm not keeping it updated. So don't go to it. But on it, I have many helps that would assist people. This is one. You're not going to probably be able to see it.
You can see that common symptoms during spikes.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
So if I might, I can read some of the common symptoms that
Right.
people experience during Schumann resonance spikes as well as solar weather coming in. Physical symptoms: vertigo, or dizziness, high headaches and migraines, nausea, sleep disturbance, trouble staying asleep or insomnia, muscle and joint pain, fatigue, lightheadedness, high blood pressure, heart palpitations, sensitivity to light, tinnitus, hearing loss, changes to smell and taste, digestive issues, chronic cold and flu symptoms. Um, Emotional symptoms are anxiety, depression, and mood swings. Those are the negative ones. Some people experience euphoria. Some people experience ecstatic sensations. Cognitive symptoms are brain fog, memory loss, difficulty concentrating. So we're having to become merciful with ourselves during these days because
Absolutely. And I'm only going to make a quick pause in here. And I love that you just said merciful. Part of that too is always, and I have to say this for the show, see your doctor if you need to see your doctor. You know, if
yes,
you're having symptoms, these what could quite be medical, that you do need to be checked out by a professional. All the while, understand, given that mercy space that you're about to talk about, if you need to rest, and I've talked about this on the show very often, taking that deep breath and resting and having a hot bath or having some music or using many of the resources from some of our other guests. But do see a medical professional if you feel so called. So thank you, Marguerite. Keep on going. Thank you.
sure. Um, there are other symptoms and so forth. Um, but one of the things, and that's very good, that people do need to go on and go see their doctors and be checked out because sometimes it isn't the Schumann resonance or
Right.
energy coming in. But when we're dealing with this over and over, I see in the comments, and we'll have hundreds of comments, and people say, I just got back from the doctor and they don't find anything wrong with me
And
at
they
all.
don't find anything. That's that you could have these mystery
Common.
symptoms if you've been to doctors and they don't know what, or they just say stress. Sure, it's stress. Well, because there are all these other things happening, and your page has what, over 67,000 people on it. You're part of a huge group of folks that are part of all of this and have been utilizing the information, and then they give forth information as well. So it's again from this broad perspective with hundreds and hundreds of people.
I think the main reason I feel like the page is so important is because there's so many people going through these changes,
Mhm.
experiencing these symptoms, and they're becoming sensitive to things that they were never sensitive to before. It's
Mhm.
people are awakening to their extrasensory perceptions, they're awakening
Mhm.
psychic abilities, they're awakening to the ability to feel a solar flare bursting off the surface of the sun and coming towards the earth, and they can feel it within hours before it's announced. We're seeing amazing things like this, and it really is like humanity is being thrust up into a new level, a new place.
Right.
that we are progressing and moving into a new area. And many people believe we're being prepared so that we can make this big jump into 5D, which I don't know if you've ever talked to your folks about 5D. Have you? Fifth density?
Not officially yet, so keep going.
Okay. So, fifth density, uh, many people, they say we're living in third density or 3D. So we have strife and discord and illness, lack, poverty, wars. All of this belongs to 3D, which is a very faulty density or dimension. But when you reach 5D, you're looking at something where people are now aware that we're all one and we're all connected. People are now aware that we're all connected to source. And that changes everything. There's no lack because people have now realized that they're not separated from source. And we have come to the place in 5D where there's a restoration has happened to the earth. And once again, a biblical reference says that the whole nature was subjected to this suffering and this fall in the hopes of its restoration someday, when the so-called sons and daughters of God will rise up. Well, that's us. That's us. And we are rising up. We're remembering who we are. We're remembering what we have forgotten. And what was stolen or lost in us is being restored. Many people believe that we didn't have just 2 strands of DNA, but instead we had 3. Then there are some who believe we had at least 12 strands, and that the junk DNA, which I may be mistaken in this, I think it's 80 to 90% of our DNA is the so-called junk DNA they don't know what to do with, is actually the parts that have been broken up of what used to be these other strands. And in those strands are what we would call the superpowers, the abilities that are godlike. And we, as human beings, are made in the image and the likeness of Creator Source. And that evidently makes us unique among all peoples in the universe. So it's important that we get restored, because all of us being connected in the field, the quantum field of possibilities, if we're not whole, then nobody else is truly whole. And so we must be restored. And some people believe that angelic beings or extraterrestrial beings have a very vested interest in our restoration,
You
because
know,
until we're whole, they can't be who they could be either. So all of this comes together. And in this day we're living in, the terminologies is they're different. You know,
they
yeah, I mean, thousands of years ago, when many of our spiritual documents and scriptures were written, we didn't have microscopes, we didn't have telescopes, we didn't have any of the ability to put names to certain things. They could only be compared to things that we could see and we know now. So we have a whole new vocabulary coming in that I feel like this is one of the ways I'm a bridge, Heather. Taking people from the old terminology into realizing that this is not some new, unthought of thing. This is the fulfillment of things that have been told for centuries and millennia, but we didn't have the terminology to explain it. And now we actually see it and know it and can prove it mathematically. And it's not
yes.
in contrary, it's not contrasting, it's not in disagreement or saying that those things were not true also. On the contrary, we just have a different viewpoint now. Where
This is the changed perspective. So let's just digest a little second here because there's been so much that it's very, very rich. So, what you're talking about is our wholeness and is our divine blueprint.
Yes.
And it is through millennia and it is through our whole DNA spectrums. And so, yes, many of the guests have spoken in various forms about this and why vibration is important and our wholeness and our unity and our community, which we'll get to later in this particular interview. So, one of the things that I wanted to go ahead and tap into is that you do come from a very big perspective because you have had your own since you were a little girl. You have seen the other side. You have witnessed, and I will go ahead and say this other thing that has been my experience this week. And I've known, we all know these things. This is, we are remembering information that is deep within us. So all this awakening, it's just we are remembering ourselves and a lot of information. So one of the things that has been very interesting is our previous guest, Best Ranella, mentioned a book called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. Now, I had heard about that book, but I was really drawn to physically get it. And so reading it, so you're talking about they didn't have telephones or lights or Wi-Fi or any of that, but there was Wi-Fi because in ancient of days, how did people know how to find when Yeshua was born, or how did they know to get together? Or the indigenous groups, the smokestacks or whatever. But the point that I'm bringing up is within the book that each page is are are saying things from thousands of years ago that are now so prudent in this moment right now. It's absolutely fascinating. And I say this word facetinating. It's very faceted because it's happening now in ways that it's hard to comprehend. And in so many ways, that's what makes makes it simple, which is, oh, we get to be here. We get to be here in our full joyous self, and that the days of strife don't have to remain anymore. And what we think we have been taught, have another look deeper. So I was just going to make a plug that particular book, and there are many books on the shelf that interestingly you can read them right now, and they were written how long ago, but it's prevalent to these times exactly right now.
Yes.
Yes. So walk us through from your own personal perspective since you were a little girl and the sensitivities. And the last thing I'm going to say is because for the super sensitives that can feel an earthquake days ahead of time,
Right.
that can feel what's happening on a collective level, and that can throw somebody off kilter as well. So again, this gets back into the being the consciousness bridge and the work that you're doing beautifully on your webpage, and the meditation moments that you have for people as well.
I think the journey from when I was very small, it started with difficulty. It was not comfortable. And that is the story of many people who have special gifts, I guess you'd call it, or insights. Um, but as we persevere and hang in with things, and the doors will begin to open and we'll come to a place of understanding and eventually finding our place. Um, the Schumann Resonance page is a gathering of people who would fit into the category of sensitives or psychically gifted, even prophetic. Um, there are people from all belief systems, all religions. One time we counted, I think it was 16 or 17 countries were present on a live chat. What are the odds of that? Why would they be attracted to my little page? And it's because there are so many people like me and like you and so many people who are finding that they're a little different, and it's developing even more. And as these energies come in, and as time passes, and the fullness of time is coming on us, people are perceiving more and feeling more and experiencing more. And it can be very lonely and it
Mhm.
can be scary. And like you said at the beginning, you all are not crazy. Many people who come to my page were thinking they were kind of crazy, you know.
Right, right.
Um, how far do you want me to go in to talk about my experience? What is there
As far as you'd like, as far as you're comfortable with. I love your road story. You shared with me, this is one of these seismic shift moments, but as whatever you're comfortable with, we can roll.
okay? There's so much. I think I need you to down a little bit.
One thing I will say that I find amazing is, yes, we can have, so many of us are sensitive in so many ways. And you first leapt on to say, hey, I loved your conversation with Dr. Temple Grandin, who clearly is a beautiful sensitive, right?
Mhm.
And but you have either literally and or metaphysically died and come back. You've seen heaven. You've talked with God a number of times. And there's something about people who have literally medically died and then come back into their bodies. I continue to find that they have this perspective that they don't put up with the same crap as the rest of us do. They can come from these spaces of, there's no, really, there's no time to waste,
Okay.
because the rest of this doesn't matter. It is from, we can call them angelic spaces, we can call them from higher dimensions, whatever we want to call them. It is easier
Mm.
to traverse this world. Well, it can be. That's the thing. Those of us who haven't been and to see, it's so much easier. This is now what we can do to realize life can be easier here.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would be happy to talk about that.
Whatever, wherever you want to go. But that it is interesting to me, because people are so fearful all the time, and they're afraid of dying, or they're just afraid. And so it's like a beautiful drum beat, is these new perspectives of, please stop running your lives so afraid.
Okay. I think the key word that keeps coming to me is love.
Yeah.
Love is really what everything is about. And my old mentor, Emmy Littlefield, he said a lot of profound things. And some of the most profound things he said sounded very simple. And one of those was, everybody just wants to be loved, Marguerite. Even little kitty cats and puppy dogs just want to be loved.
Mhm.
And it's very simplistic, but it's the truth. Everyone wants to be loved just as they are. And my experience being very different than many, coming up in a family that it was difficult, and I was very different than all of my family, and still am. um, my mother once said to me, and it kind of hurt me, but then later I thought, well, maybe that's a good thing. She said, "You're not like us at all. You're nothing like any of us. Where did you come from?" And I thought, wow, well, okay. I guess that's true. I think many people today, and as always have, are dealing with feeling like they don't fit in, don't fit anywhere. And perhaps they're playing a game and trying to act like everyone else, but they're concerned deep inside that if people knew who they really were, what they really thought about, what they were really interested in, they would not be accepted or approved. And I believe we're coming into the time where love is going to override all our foolishness. I heard a illustration years and years ago about a lake that was, a place on the shore where they were raising ducks, and they had them in these cages that the top part was open because it was in water. And they would swim inside the cage, but they were separated from the ducks next to them who were also in a cage with the top open and they were in the water. But then the water rose over the top of the cages, and now they were all swimming together and they were one. And love is like the water. Love lifts up above our divisions and our categories and our denominations and our countries and our races and our cultures and everything else. And my journey, like I believe most people's, was really to find love, to find a place where I belonged or was accepted, which I did not find in a satisfying way in my family or in the world out there. I've always been odd. I'm an artist. I have a lot of peculiarities and differences, which I don't think are bad things now. But coming from an abusive situation in my family, I was a suicidal teenager. And I thought about it all the time. And I didn't think I deserved to live because of my experiences. And when I had my spiritual awakening, which was an encounter with love, it changed everything. I had been trying to find a way, but I didn't believe that anything that worked for anyone else could work for me because I thought I was just worthless. So, what happened, and I don't want to do anything to divide people away from me or find any difference between us. On the contrary, I want to use words that are all totally inclusive, but also want to be honest with my experience.
Mhm.
I had an encounter with Jesus, and it was earth shattering. For me, it was totally transforming. I experienced unconditional love for the first time in my life, and it was directly from God. And you say, how can that be? I experienced it. It happened to me just as plain as day. All of a sudden, all my fears and anxieties and guilt and shame and rejection was gone in a moment. It was supernatural. It was impossible. And it didn't just last for a little while, it has lasted my whole life. And in that place of love and being accepted, forgiven, acknowledged, seen, approved of, I want to do that with others. I want to express that with others. And my experience of going into the spirit realm, into heaven, actually, I did not physically die. It came out of a lot of time in meditation, a lot of time longing for things. I'm an idealist, being an artist. I want things to be as my opinion they should be. People love each other and there's not a bunch of poverty and suffering, sickness, etc. The main thing is the lack of love that I experienced here and have seen so many other people experience. And in my longing for love, um, one day I was in my upper chamber of my house and I was longing, and it was like everything had been set up for me. I was called to that room that day just as clearly as someone had called me by my name. I had a spiral staircase. I stood at the bottom of the spiral staircase and I said, I'm coming. And I walked up, I walked in, and I sat down in my bean bag, which was on the floor in this room that I kept for my meditation and prayer time. And amazingly, so many things happened, but one of the things that happened was it was like a flaming sphere, almost like a planet was racing towards me, and I saw it in my eye, my spiritual eye, and it was scary. Startled me. There was so much power, and I kind of freaked out. Well, I didn't go there that day because I backed out. However, a few days later, I was called again, and I went back up to this room, and I laid down on my bean bag, and I began to focus on love. I began to remember how loved I had been, how much grace and kindness I had experienced and approval. And all of a sudden, it was like stepping up a step on a stairway. Literally, just one step. That's how close it is. It's like it's here now. But I stepped up a step and found myself standing in a place that is not earth. The lighting is different. And everything is very different. There's nothing whispering in your ear telling you how worthless you are or any negative things about anyone. The air is filled with peace and love. And there is no sun in the sky. The sky wasn't blue, though I do love the blue sky. Light was everywhere, but it was gentle. There were no shadows. Even though where I was looking was outdoors, it's very much like Earth, but it's very perfect. Um, I have read of people, this is why I brought up the fairy thing with us the other day. I've heard of people crossing over into the fairy realm, they call it. Not just the little Tinkerbell type characters, but what used to be so common before the turn into the 20th century. That they talked about how the lighting was different. They talked about how everything was different. Time was different. You know, they might have felt like they were for hours there and they were missing for days on Earth. This is something similar to what I experienced. And I know it to be heaven, but others have experienced it in other ways. So it supersedes, it rises above, it takes us into a whole new level and a new place. And all of these things, there are principles and parallels in all belief systems that correspond to one another. And truth is truth. And the one thing that corresponds and rises above everything else is love. And in that love is the realization of our oneness with one another. And in that place, crime disappears when you realize that that person you're looking at is you. When you realize that we're all connected and I can't hurt you without damaging myself. So I don't know. This has gone far afield, but this is what many people are experiencing nowadays is this whole new perspective, a whole new experience that's taking them out of their traditional zones that they were brought up in and bringing them into a much wider place where the ducks are swimming together because love has lifted them up and above and outside of our divisions and separations. On the Schumann page, like I mentioned, we have many countries that are there and present, which astounds me. We'll have like 3 people on there from Sweden, you know, someone from Northern Norway, people from the UK, Australia, New Zealand, the Maori tribes, Belgium, on and on. And it's astounding. And we're all connected. How can we all be connected? How, when none of us knew each other before? But in these days, with the energies coming in like they are, people are hearing this new song that is a very old song. and they're beginning to know what they knew only in the deepest place of their hearts. And as they are coming together and finding and hearing this frequency calling to them, we're finding each other. And we're finding each other in a place that rises above all religious titles and names and rules and countries and races, etc. And we're finding such love and such peace and such belonging. I just look at it and I cry because I'm just so amazed. People write to me, who am I? How did they even find me on Facebook? They write me and they say, Marguerite, I had so many autoimmune diseases or still have them, and so many problems and pains and issues. I couldn't sleep at night. But I found your Facebook page and your live chats. And when I heard your voice, I felt such love and peace. And I read this and I read it over and over. And one woman who was a computer genius, that's what she did. She worked with people with computer stuff. And she was a programmer and everything else. She programmed a bunch of my live chats and hooked them all together and ran them all night long because she, who because of pain, physical illness, and the torment that went with it, had not been able to sleep for more than just a little while at a time for years. And yet, when she ran that recording of me, I could be talking about the weather. She said it didn't matter. And she could sleep all night. The pain wasn't there anymore. How do you explain things like that? And these people have been called by something much higher than any of us. And when you go on that page, the comments are so filled with love and compassion, and people will say how they're feeling, and I'm not feeling good at all. And someone will chime in and say, I have been experiencing that too. And then they will both oh my gosh, wish each other the best and with love, and wish that each other recover and feel better very soon. There's so much love, there's so much acceptance, there's so much encouragement, and yet from so many different backgrounds. And they'll say, I come every day to this page to find community. I come here every day to find out what's happening with Schumann Resonance, to understand why I feel like I do and why people are acting like they do on the road, but also to come into this refuge. And so it is an amazing thing. And I think it is answering the desire of so many people's hearts on such a very simple, common level, that it's much more than just the Schumann resonance. It's much more than the space weather. But all of that is something we are observing together and talking about how it is influencing and affecting us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the resonance. And the second you mention about the song, and I will say heart song to paraphrase, but this is what this is what the calling is. I wanted to burst out into tears. These soul calls, but this is from our highest memory banks, the song, right?
Yes.
At first there was the word. Well, that's a harmony. It's literally harmonics.
Yes.
And so the harmonies of through your voice, people have said that to me. I found it a high compliment that someone said, I've never listened to podcasts and I put yours on, but I fall asleep every single time. And I said, well, thank you. Says, I don't know a word you said, but I sleep like a baby. Well, thank you.
That.
How about that? I love that. That's fine. Because sometimes the words are important, but what we're talking about is so lovely and loving, and all of the new math is about love. And we can get into, the new generation. Maybe we'll circle into that for a moment, because as we know, every baby comes into this world nothing but little love muffins, right? And then, life happens.
Yeah.
Right now, the younger generation that some of the elders don't exactly know what to do with, but they are unveiled. They are very transparent. Many are very, very, very sensitive. We have all kinds of spectrums and things, but they're sensitive. They've come here to this earth different than previous generations. So our medicine has to keep up. Our way of communicating has to keep up. We need to allow them to teach us more,
Yeah.
because they can also see right through it, and so they're not putting up with BS. They're just not.
Right.
And this is part of our new day, which is why this song calling and community, and where we can have these softer places to land for people to know that you're not alone. You might be different, but here, come to the land of misfit toys, because we all are in this together, right?
And yet
And
gifted. Yeah.
the gifts, this is just it. Holy mackerel. We
Yeah.
need to literally allow the space, and where the different way of schooling is, we can be a nice little
Mm.
mm, it's more like shepherding. We can allow a bit of some structure. Structure is great, but man, oh man, these kids are here to literally help us reinvent all of these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
And
with the kids, it is about the kids, and how the bridging part, I think, is to help the adults, who are feeling stressed and they don't know what to do with their kids. But I keep finding in my wheelhouse, my um, gifts of when I've been on the road, is I see it happening. So some people are like, oh well, we'll never get there. No, dads are being dads in ways that they had never been able to be. Men are being their full whole self. Women can let down so many guards. Everybody can just let down so much guard and just be and hang out. And so I can see it happening already with
mm,
the parenting and the partnerships. And it feels so fresh. It really is very fresh,
coming outside of those boxes.
coming out of the boxes.
Yes. Big time.
Yeah.
Um, hmm, I think many of us, even the ones that are older, are awakening to the things that perhaps were hidden,
Right.
covered over, ignored, too ashamed to admit they were there. It's like now you cannot ignore them.
Right.
Many
Right.
people. And like I'd mentioned, my niece, who just turned 16, she came in with all of this, remembering where she came from, remembering the way she described it, sitting in the lap of God with other little beings. And she was shown who her mother would be and who her father would be. And she saw when my brother David proposed to her mother, she saw what they were wearing. She saw things that were said that had never been shared. This little girl is for real. She's not little anymore. She's 16. But these children came in like this, not
Right.
like you mentioned the other day when we were talking. They came in remembering, whereas most of us totally forgot where we came from or what was before. And they come in with a truth monitor that, like you say, will not put up with the lies and the foolishness and the silly systems of, of humankind that protect us and box us away from others out of fear, because fear has no place in where we're going. It has no place. And love, however, they have a monitor or they have the ability to see through everything straight through to who is real.
Right. It's
What
real and authentic and transparent. And I will piggyback to that because you use the term humankind. Part of our confusion, the sensitives who've come here, like where's the kindness? We're met. This
uh,
is our blueprint. Our signature is humankind,
I love that.
kind to self. And if you're kind to self, that leaves the room for kind to others. So
Mhm.
anyway, it they are here to help remind us because they know,
Yes.
and yeah, they know already. Huh.
And it's good for us to tell them it's all right. They don't need to forget what they remember,
Yep.
that they need to hold on to it and not be concerned about being different, but
Right.
to know that it's to be treasured and it's priceless. And they really are like gems and jewels that have come in. And so many adults are surfacing too. There's just so much going on.
There really is, and I think for this stage of our conversation, because I have, there's been no concept of time. We could be have been recording for 2 hours. It could be 2 minutes. I don't know, but it feels like let's kind of wind into or kind of infinitely circle into some parting nuggets or something that wants to come forward as something helpful, which I think this entire conversation has been a harmonic of love.
Mm.
And where because there could be some news, there could be some things happening that could be happening in the world on a broader scale. You know, these resonances and spikes and blackouts don't happen. Well, they can happen in a vacuum. That's a different bit of science, but they're here for a reason. And so as this is happening, I can feel my hands starting to glow. What could we help then bring forward as people want to feel freaking out? And yes, everybody deserves to feel all of their emotions. However, I know you're brilliant at heart coherence and everything, but it feels like we could probably add something to the finishing piece of this particular show for something that could be coming forward that we could be of help and of service.
Okay. I have some, this is very practical,
Right. Good.
very practical things that we can do to help ourselves when we are perhaps experiencing what seems to us to be overwhelm, feeling
Yep.
overwhelmed with things that are happening by the energies. Maybe we don't know to call it the energies, but the things that we're feeling. Some people feel like they might say their nerves are on edge, or they may be experiencing pain all over their body or in their joints or having headaches or all these different symptoms that can come, or the feeling of just being absolutely overwhelmed and anxious because of all the change everywhere we look. The things that were considered and accepted as standards that did not change, they're
Yep.
changing. There is nothing steady, it seems, anymore. And that is very disturbing to our minds and our hearts. So, what can we do to help ourselves deal with the symptoms and the feelings and the physical things that are happening? Number one, pray/meditate. In that place of just sitting and being quiet, or however you do it, maybe you go out into nature, whatever pray and meditate means to you, in that place of resting and relaxing your mind and doing all those things that go with these words, there's great relief. There's great room made for help to come. And let me just say this, ask for help. I was watching John, I believe is his name, and Greg Braden. I don't know if you've heard them. He's been around
Well,
long.
Greg Braden and well, I forget which John.
Yes,
Because I've got Bruce Lipton. I've got Bruce Lipton on
Ar-
the mind, but yeah.
Arlington Institute is where the John is.
Okay.
Okay, John.
Okay.
And they were talking together, and they actually said, there are a lot of beings that we're perhaps not aware of that are here to help us.
Yep.
A whole lot. And you can say angels, you say angelic beings, you can say, well, extraterrestrial just means not of the earth. there, there's God, there are angels, there are all kinds of beings, nature spirits, you name it, whatever you call it, that are here to help us
Mhm.
during these days, especially. Because these are the days that have been prophesied. These are the days that have been looked forward to coming for so long. And so many beings have interest in how well we come through these times. And they were just talking. They said, just ask for help. Say it out loud. Say it in your heart. Say, help. Send help in this situation if you don't know what to do. Just say, help. I don't know how to deal with this. And by asking, we're giving permission and legal permission to be assisted from many different directions. So pray/meditate. Number 2, drink lots of pure water. Stay hydrated. You don't want to be running intense energies and frequencies through a dry vessel. Not a good idea. So drink lots of pure water. Ground yourself in nature. So, people walk in the forest and they've discovered there's an energetic rain that comes off of the trees onto us, which we don't get any other way except for walking under and beneath the trees. And science has taken note of this. Go into nature and ground yourself. Take your shoes off and walk barefoot on the grass. Sitting next to lamps that are electrical or near even an electrical outlet can literally raise our energy. The static electricity and other electricities. You can take a little device from a hardware store and measure it. And people can become overwhelmed and it can trigger pain and anxiety in us. So walk barefoot on the grass, hug a tree, put your palms on the trunk of a tree for about a minute or two, and it literally will ground you and bring you to the natural zero level that we're made for. That is the Earth's frequency. Take wonderful warm Epsom salt baths. That is a wonderful grounding tool and a detoxing tool. Take long, deep breaths, like you mentioned earlier. We need to just stop and breathe sometimes. Just stop and go and center ourselves. Spend time with people and animals that you love and enjoy. Do it intentionally and be present. Rest and sleep as much as you need, as much as you can. One of the things, these frequencies coming in, these downloads that are coming, the best way to implement them, to process them, is in sleep. So many people find that they're taking naps unintentionally. They never were a napper.
Right.
And because of these energies, the neurosynaptic connections that are being created by these new energies coming into our brains and our nervous systems, that's a lot of work for the body and the soul. So when we sleep, all that is connected and implemented and put into place. So let yourself sleep when you can. Take time to recreate and do things you love. Give yourself that permission. Make sure that you have plenty of electrolytes. I was telling you before we came on, I started feeling so tired. I was just like, "Oh my goodness, I just wanna sit down, and do I even wanna do this thing tonight?" And I stopped and I muscle tested it, I strength tested it, and I found that I was severely deficient in potassium. Well, yeah, it made me feel very tired. So I took some angstrom minerals, which is tiny particulate liquid potassium, so that you don't overdose per se. But I tested how much and I took it, and I could feel immediately everything starting to shift because these high frequencies and the changes taking place in our world burn electrolytes like rocket fuel. So
'Cause it is rocket fuel. It really because we're on this rocket ride. Oh my gosh. It is so true.
So we
Yeah,
need, find your pathway to keep your
yeah,
electrolytes up.
right,
You know, whether you go by Celtic sea salt or Himalayan pink salt or the stuff from Utah, real salt, that all has a lot of those tiny minerals in them. Or if you go purchase something at a health food store or get organic chicken soup, uh,
right.
or organic vegetable broth, all of those will refurbish your electrolytes, which we really need to stay on top of during these days. You
Is
can't
so true. And
use
if you don't have a bathtub, many times I'll take the salt and I'll give myself a salt scrub. And, a bath is wonderful, but sometimes oof, just having a nice salt scrub does
what,
the trick.
like, do you put water with the salt and put it on a
Yeah, well, if I'm all wet, and then I'll just, scrubby, scrubby.
oh, in the
Yeah, in the shower.
I gotcha. I know.
Yep. And I'll, let it cake on for a minute and then, yeah. So
Yeah,
that works. That's helpful as well.
and
Yeah.
some people do a foot bath,
Yes.
like the
Yes.
old timers used to do
Yeah.
salt bath
Yeah.
feet to it
It's
pulls
true.
toxins out. It's wonderful.
Right. It's true.
All right, and so do the heart brain coherence meditation.
Hmm.
I actually have done a version of it and put it up at the pinned post on top of my page. It only takes
Okay.
3 minutes and it
Okay.
turn people around. If you're in a funk, you just
Yep.
lousy, you can do this heart brain coherence meditation, which was highlighted and developed by the Heart Math
Hmm.
group organization. And it literally is scientific and it will change you.
Right.
Uh,
That one is beautiful. The heart math, the Ho'oponopono prayer,
yeah,
all of these different things that can just help bring forward some joy and presence and shift and get our, sometimes you just got to physically get your wigglies out and remember the joy and the fun and to play like as a child, right? You had mentioned about doing something maybe recreational is the fun part as well.
because recreation, you're
Yeah.
you're recreating your heart and your
Yeah.
being. And then the last thing on my list is think beautiful and happy thoughts
Oh,
and to do it intentionally. And this will help restore us. When we're going through difficult adjustments or being overwhelmed or feeling overwhelmed. Those things are very helpful as we move through this new place that we're all moving through.
right. Right. And if you don't have a tree in your backyard, that's what our imagination is for, right? Yeah.
And just about everyone can find a little patch of dirt somewhere.
Yep, you sure can. Marguerite, oh my God, this has been a patchwork quilt of amazingness. I'm so thrilled that we got to connect here. And really, the resonance has been nothing short of amazing and beautiful and hopefully quite helpful for a lot of people. Again, tell us where people can find you. And I know you also have Shopify, you have beautiful jewelries and pendants and things, and maybe your artwork. So share where you would like people to find you.
I do have a Shopify shop that It's called Marguerite's Flow Shop, meaning flowing with the energies. And this is one of the pendants. And they're not just pretty, they are practical.
Is that one
This,
got a scalar wave on there or something? And
yeah, is,
yeah, scalar. Yeah.
and it also has all these stones on the back. I don't know if you can see that.
Beautiful. Yep.
Yes, and they each do something. Some of them have magnets, but if you have a pacemaker, you don't want one of those. So I have some that
Right.
do not have magnets. And magnets, of course, are good to help with pain and with certain healings in the body. There's all kinds of things there. But the main thing is they protect us from electromagnetic frequencies that are man made, not so good for us, even coming off of our cell phones and so forth. And,
Mhm.
um, people have come back to me. I wanted to offer them to my people because they're going through so much. They need all the help we can find ourselves.
That's right.
So I found a source with some beautiful ones that are they're really pretty. This is one right here. I just happen to have hanging. This
It
is
is pretty.
this is the flower of life design, which of course is sacred geometry. I also have one that is called the Triskelion, which is three swirls, and it stands in the Celtic culture for the child, the young baby, the girl, the woman, and the crone, the three stages of life. But in the Christian culture, it's the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity. And all of these have this scalar energy and this protective measure. And people have gotten back to me with how much it's helped them. And it's brought me a lot of joy to know that it's helping. People who couldn't sleep are sleeping like babies, happy babies.
Nice. Oh, beautiful. So
Yeah,
and so that's your website and then of course your Facebook page. Tell us again the name of that.
it is Schumann Resonance Updates with Marguerite.
Nice.
And
Nice. And are you on the Instagrams and LinkedIn's and such or mostly
not
the Facebook?
point, not at this.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to expand. I
Yeah.
also have an art site, which is um it's a gallery and it's an amazing organization that's all over the world. They have centers all over the world. They can take my paintings and stuff like can't really see it now. May I shift the lighting? This may be kind of shocking. Hang on a moment. Um, this is a tapestry of a painting of mine.
Beautiful. I was noticing that very regal lion back there. And
Yes,
that's one of your paintings? I can
it
it's
is
amazing.
one of my oil paintings, but it's in
Okay.
tapestry form. So it's
Okay.
cloth and it's large. They can put my artwork on duvets, pillows, shower curtains, um, metal. I mean, it's astounding, and they're all over the world. So no matter where a person is, they can order it, and in a week have the product at their door.
Very cool.
So
And
they
that's actually note to self, Heather. Good to know. Thank you. I might have some beautiful photographs or something. So anyway, thank
oh,
you for that
cool.
little tip. Yeah,
So
nice.
we'll drop the links in later for people.
Yes, everything's going to be in the show notes, whether you're on YouTube listening or watching, and um, all the different platforms. So just click on the description of the show, and all the information is in the show notes. So, Marguerite, I am so tickled and thrilled to have spent this time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, for inviting me. This has been wonderful, and I just want to say you are very special. Your show is special. And I see it. I don't know how big a following, but I see it expanding because people need you and what you're bringing too.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thanks for listening, everybody. Please remember to like, review, share this and all the other shows. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.